we come together again for a midday broadcast. Some COVID concerns, novel coronavirus, they continue to be concerned that the children are being immunologically disturbed. That is to say, when they get COVID infected, children have been manifesting the immune inflammatory reaction quite violently, some or rather severely. So some children have died, and it is causing a scare. But what you need to understand is it's the same immune inflammatory reaction as far as the setting up of the immune cascade with inflammation. That is, I have explained this before, our normal body immunity must be innate and waiting to act against the foreign pathogen, virus or bacteria. But what has been happening in children is, because of many flu shots and other vaccine shots, and also of course sugar style of living, constantly on the digital screen, evoking cortisol and flight, fright, fight reaction, they're immune compromised in different ways. Junk food and all that, not much of outdoor life. Then if they have been getting so many antibiotics, their commensal bacterial population will be low. Commensals is the good fellows, good bacteria who live in our sinuses, in our gut, even on our skin. When those bacteria go down because of just indoor living without much outdoor living, or else because of too many antibiotics, then other pathogens easily invade. Secondly, as I explained earlier, if they have got many adjuvants with multivalent virus vaccines, many adjuvants into their body, their immunity is not just that innate immunity, but it is already in adaptive immunity. That is, it is in attack phase. Low-grade immune inflammatory system is working, cytokines are working, therefore the SPMs are low. The molecules that keep the immune response modulated, the specified pro-resolving modulating molecules are low. Then when this COVID virus gets in and its proteins begin to initiate this immune attack, then it begins to manifest in small arteries, small arterioles in the heart or in the lung or in the brain. And then of course the hemoglobin molecule is also attacked. So the children develop a severe syndrome. It's like the Kawasaki syndrome, which was an immune attack on the small arteries, or sometimes it's a toxic shock syndrome because their angiotensin is also low and they have a general circulatory failure. Before all this happens, if they are given the right dose of hydroxychloroquine, secondly low dose aspirin, thirdly immune modulating drug like tocilizumab, and a smaller dose of methylprednisolone as recommended by the North Vermont University. Regimes are available. I have written on this. You can contact me and ask me questions on +94 77 49 59 214. And please note that these are just advice. This is just knowledge. This is not a prescriber's prescription, so you must not take any of these things that I say on your own. You must consult your normal clinician. So those regimes will not allow the children to go into this. Long term, what has to be considered is if the children are given a BCG shot, BCG vaccine. BCG trains your entire cellular system for good immunity. That is the purpose of the BCG vaccine. And it is our cellular system that should carry the memory of our immunity for the whatever comes from outside. If our cellular immunity is trained, it's called trained immunity, and BCG vaccine is very good to train our cellular immunity. But when our humoral immunity, that is the gamma glob involved immunity, begins to get into inflammatory mode, or intense mode, activated mode, then only the cytokine storm comes and problems come. So if we have got a BCG shot, or in this time clinicians consider giving a BCG vaccine, we get the cellular immunity trained. So that's the way to go. So this is about why children are getting those symptoms and so on. Then there's a trial, a survey out. The countries that are using hydroxychloroquine, the percentage number of clinicians using hydroxychloroquine is highest in Spain. Spain's death rate came suddenly down after the use of hydroxychloroquine and tocilizumab and the low-dose aspirin regime to prevent the microthrombi developing in the vascular system. So this is not a virus pneumonia. This is a cytokine storm, or with development of thrombus microemboli, because the hemoglobins are also attacked by the COVID protein. So these are some of the existing and current developments. So that survey shows that the countries that have a higher percentage of clinicians using hydroxychloroquine, death rate has come down. So Germany uses it, France uses it extensively because of the studies in the National Institute of Infectious Disease by Professor Gout and Professor Raoult. And that institute was recently visited by the French Prime Minister Macron, and because of their recommendation, hydroxychloroquine is extensively used in France. Of course, in all Asian countries we have used hydroxychloroquine, include Sri Lanka. I have in great detail demonstrated to you in former clips why hydroxychloroquine is the most suitable drug. Then US uses hydroxychloroquine. It is mandated under emergency regulation for hospital use. By the time if patients come to hospital advanced in disease, hydroxychloroquine will have no effect. I'll deal with this. Now there are 3 trials reported in the New England Journal of Medicine. Now when we were young doctors and academics, that's one of the first journals we would run to read to our SLMA library. But it reported 3 trials. One, it reported the treatment of the veterans, that is VA trial or VA report of Navymen infected in US cruise ship, that 47 died. And it was considered that hydroxychloroquine failed. What actually happened was, in the last stages of their critical illness, when they were quite hypoxic, they were put on hydroxychloroquine. Advanced stages of disease, you must not give hydroxychloroquine, because when there's hypoxia, that is low oxygen, the hydroxychloroquine, the cardiotoxic effect of hydroxychloroquine will be more. So you must give hydroxychloroquine early, and you must not give hydroxychloroquine if the patient is hypoxic till you increase his oxygen concentration in the blood, either by ECMO or by giving hyperbaric oxygen. Then you can give hydroxychloroquine again. So that first study reported in the New England Journal of Medicine did not convey the truth, because it was patients at an advanced stage of the disease with hypoxia who were given hydroxychloroquine, which never should have happened. The second study that was reported in New England Journal of Medicine was on remdesivir. Very quickly they changed the desired end outcome. So in a clinical trial, you change the desired end outcome, the trial becomes unreliable. That's the principle with clinical trials. They changed it, and they reported remdesivir as very effective, and Dr. Fauci recommended it as the drug for the COV2. Now there had been a trial in China before that said remdesivir is not effective. So with this new trial that was reported in the New England Journal of Medicine, it was a trial by Gilead, who sponsored the drug. Many professors of pharmacology said this is a badly designed trial. You can refer it up. If you want, I can send the references on the WhatsApp number I gave you. +94 77 49 59 214. Many, for instance, Professor Stephen Evans the pharmacoepidemiology professor of the London School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene said he can't understand why New England Journal of Medicine should report a trial like this with such poor parameters, and he said this trial should have been reported only by the drug company Gilead on their website. So I'm dwelling on this at length because there's a concerted effort to prove that hydroxychloroquine is not effective. Whereas all over Asia and in France, it has been proven that it immediately reduces the death rates. The third trial that was reported by New England Journal of Medicine was a trial in the Columbia University. Again, worse affected patients were assigned for hydroxychloroquine at the emergency unit, which means they were rushed to hospital, advanced disease, and their hypoxia is mentioned there. They were given, and through many statistical computations, they said the two groups are balanced, but when actually you analyze in detail, I have written on this, and I have on my blog, Dr. Lalith Mendis blog, .wordpress.com, analysis why this trial was completely wrong. And many other doctors have published on a website why that third trial, which condemned hydroxychloroquine as not effective, is also a false condemnation. If you need references, please write to me. Now there's a new trial reported done in the New York University, Grossman Medical College, and they have said the statistics are available. It's on Medbrix and Daily Mail UK reported, but it's on a proper medical website. They have said hydroxychloroquine reduce death rate by 50%. So the issue is more than hydroxychloroquine. Why would a simple cheap drug use so much for other diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus erythematosus in the West? And in our countries, Asian countries, chloroquine was extensively used for malaria with known side effects. Why would a simple effective drug be sidelined so much? What's the agenda? We have to ask this. So then we come to the push for a global vaccine certificate. Here is my summary of it. Get a virus going with a long incubation period, which therefore, when the incubation period is long, that virus will make many contacts. So there will be contact tracing would be near impossible, or many will be infected. So SARS-CoV-1 appeared in 2003, and the virologist of Pennsylvania University says it appeared and disappeared suddenly. And what they don't know where it came, again RNA virus, they tried to make a vaccine for it. It's interesting what happened with SARS-CoV-1 virus. The vaccine was tried on primates, a modified virus, mind you, and all those primates died of an immune inflammatory reaction. That's right. What am I talking about? 2003 SARS-CoV-1 virus. And the vaccine project was stopped. CoV-2 appears, the novel coronavirus, the COVID infection, and it begins to produce an immune inflammatory reaction which can become fatal if not treated early with hydroxychloroquine. So you wonder, CoV goes off suddenly, CoV-1, which caused SARS. CoV-2 appears and it is causing a fatal immune reaction if it is not attended on early. And the way to attend on it early is to give hydroxychloroquine early, if possible soon after exposure, soon after you are detected COVID+. And the very thing that can prevent the fatal immune cascade is not being given. So what's the game? There is a big effort to prove that no drug is effective. Remdesivir is very expensive, and Gilead suggested something like $5,000 or $4,500 US for a course, and it's an intravenous drug. Then, so what's the game? Then now WHO says they are even trying herbal remedies from countries. So why is this desperation to find a remedy when the easiest available drug is being sidelined? Then COVID deaths were registered Now there's a hue and cry, particularly in US and in New York. Any death was registered as COVID because if it's a COVID death, the NIH gives money and many hospitals recorded deaths, embellishing the data. Then there's a drive to get everybody immune compromised with recurrent flu shots. I have explained this to you. When you have multivalent viruses and adjuvants added to provoke immunity, provoke an immune reaction, you don't allow anybody to develop immune memory with cells. Cellular immunity is very important for immune memory. CD8 lymphocytes, macrophages have to be trained in immunity. This was the success of the triple vaccine. This was the success of the BCG vaccine and even oral polio vaccine, great vaccines. They did great good. What they did was they got the patient into cellular immunity, of course the humoral immunity or the antibody-driven immunity. So we have two kinds of immunity, cell-mediated immunity and the antibody-driven immunity. When you get the antibody-driven immunity with cytokines acting very quickly, as it happens with adjuvants and many vaccines, you are putting the patient on continual inflammatory status, and any further infection, that person is going to suffer. This is the state of the population that continually takes flu vaccines. So we have wondered why some countries are showing severity of infection whereas others don't. Obviously, where the flu vaccine is being given, infection is severe. That's it. Other factors matter, vitamin D deficiency, omega-3 deficiency, and whether the BCG is given. BCG is helpful to maintain immunity, but the simplest thing is where the flu vaccine is given, this COVID infection has been severe. So there's constant dramatization of clinical features, describing it like a mystery disease with a lot of media interviews without treating it as a simple disease that needs new engagement. So this dramatization, making very alarming news, is also part of the game to get, and today Dr. Fauci says it will have to be a many-valent vaccine. Many vaccines will have to be given, and the drum is being beaten up that different nations will have different vaccine strains, and who is going to say whether it's true or not? Only by analysis of antibodies can you know the vaccine strains. And Dr. Monica, a German immunologist, is on record showing how fake and falsely reported the antibody testing is. You need to have a look at her clip to understand when people are reporting antibodies and antibody levels. No one really knows how true this is unless there's standardized reporting on it on immunology websites and peers criticizing each other. That's not happening anymore. So there's a very politicized, system-driven momentum to get a globally applicable vaccine out. That seems to be the end result of this virus. I have done some detailed clips about origin of the virus, and day before I think I quoted Professor Hamilton, who professor in Australia of great repute. He says this vaccine obviously had to be engineered virus, because the bat coronavirus RNA strand is there exactly at the point where the furin enzyme acts. Rest of the chain is different. So furin enzyme is what you use when you want to change the nucleotide series of the virus. If it's a mutation, what happens is in the virus, at some point one thing changes. With another mutation, another thing changes. And mutations don't give gain of function. That's a law in genetics. Mutations don't give gain of function. Mutations cause loss of function. So that is why laboratories started doing gain of function virus experiments, and I told you that In 2014, gain-of-function virus research was stopped in USA because Johns Hopkins and Harvard virologists protested about it, and then it was shifted to Wuhan and funded in Wuhan by the CDC. So it is quite unfair to call it China virus because the research was driven by the CDC in Wuhan. That's about the vaccine, and now we come to some other matters of concern. About the globulins, the more you use globulins, more you use plasma therapies, more you confuse the immune system of the individual. Therefore, globulin therapy is useful when the patient is very ill, in septic shock, toxic shock. There are globulins that can take care of the cytokines that are causing the immune inflammatory reaction. Also, you can take the plasma out of the body and do extracorporeal out of the body plasmapheresis. Then also those damaging antibodies can be taken out. Or else for those damaging immune inflammatory molecules, you have antibodies already made. They can be used if the patient is that bad. But it is far better to prevent the immune cascade by using drugs like tocilizumab, all those mAb. Those are the drugs that act on that immune cascade that has got too active. Then we have to stop it. Otherwise, it damages the patients and the organs as the COVID virus does. So here is another little consideration for you: the family culture and the global culture. This has medical consequences. That's why I am using it like this. The battle really is to protect your family from invasions that separate you from your best interest. So you protect your family and your children's health and your health, and just see how many things have been designed and underway. One is the health issue. Why do, for instance, since 1980, in US, laboratory workers, government and university laboratory workers, professors, they can patent their own thing and earn money. So what happens? When a good drug comes around, it does not get patented. The bad drug that the university did for someone's profit, that gets patented. For instance, methotrexate, a simple drug used for many kinds of cancers, one of the less toxic drug, is not available in many parts of USA because it's can't be branded. It's a common drug. Same problem with hydroxychloroquine. What are the contraindications of hydroxychloroquine? Main one is that it can't be patented. Nobody can earn money from hydroxychloroquine. That's the problem. When drugs are promoted, you need to understand that patents are behind it, profit is behind it. You need to protect yourself and protect your family from this drug invasion and health. So I like to take up the issue of Jupiter trial in 1990 that mandated the use of statins. Just do a Google search and see how many people protested at that time that all the statistical computations are completely wrong in the Jupiter trial. Hardly any betterment in the two control groups is statistically embellished to show as if statins did it, and many clinicians believe this. But you just go back to this, just do Jupiter trial and critics or whatever, do a Google search and see. I have many articles on this on my blog, Dr.Lalith blog.wordpress.com. I mention this to you for you to understand this is a long battle against your health. So these are not conspiracy theories. These are simple, straightforward pharmacological issues. One more example. From about 1990, aspirin was criminalized as a horrible NSAID. That is, a drug used for pain, inflammation, for arthritis and so on. The simple aspirin was very effective, but they kept saying it is terrible, it is terrible. But in actual fact, in 1985, when GMC did a comparative trial, aspirin caused the least number of side effects as a anti-arthritic drug. Now you don't know this, isn't it? Therefore, Bayer in Germany has produced different combinations of aspirin, and in Germany aspirin is widely available. Expensive preparations though, because they have made it strawberry flavored and so on, but our simple aspirin as you get it in Sri Lanka is quite effective. Now these were anti-arthritic effects. Now low dose aspirin being given for heart effect, that's a different action. Just by the way, what you need to remember is, if you are on low dose aspirin and you take any drug like Voltaren, Brufen or that kind of drug, now really we ought to say ibuprofen and diclofenac, because those are the pharmacological names of those drugs, you will lose the effect of the low dose aspirin. So that's the research I did. It is documented, Index Medicus, and documented in the Ceylon Medical Journal and in the NBM journals. So I'll repeat it. If you are on small dose of aspirin, which is usually cardioprin, for your heart need, antiplatelet effect, if you take on top of that anti-arthritic doses of Brufen or Voltaren or whatever it is, you lose that beneficiary effect on the heart. So what am I saying? Don't just swallow tablets just because you get a pain somewhere. You lose the beneficial effect of the low dose aspirin. I went into great details for you to understand. I'm speaking from knowledge. These are not conspiracy theories. These are not guesstimates. So we are coming to the issue of how invaded is your health in fact. That's the issue. What is science and what is not science? How much place we are given to science, thinking it is science. So similarly, children have been invaded, and if you put the children on the digital screen, you will lose your children. They are taken away from you. Screen begins to teach them spook, monsters, magic, and very rude ways. It is intentional. Then the screen will begin to teach them bisexuality, asexuality, cartoons are looking what? So the screen will begin to teach them LGBTQ stuff, and intentionally trailers come that are meant for another age. Those are all intentional invasions of your child's life and your home from the screen. Don't think this is happenstance. So spook, magic, monsters, aliens, excuse me, and children thinking they know more than parents, and they speak like that, and parents also capitulating meekly, saying, oh, this is the digital age, they know more than us, see how smart they are. This goes on. I have extensively written on it. Last year I presented an academic article to the SLMA, and I have written many books on it. You can get them and read it. And if you want any clips, please send a WhatsApp to the number I mentioned. We can get it to you. Third point I am at is violation of sexual boundaries. Sexualized cartoons and the suggestive cartoons all violate your child's sexual predilection, and they become precocious, and it is intentionally done. So protect your home from the digital invasion and the invasion of sexual boundaries. So my theme is family culture versus global culture. Understand it is intentional. 4 sexual boundaries violated, for instance, the Hpv vaccine, human papilloma virus vaccine. Girls develop around their vagina, around their cervix of the vagina, top part of the vagina, a squamous cell epithelium by the age of 18 and afterwards. If they are involved in sexual activity before that, they get infected with the human papilloma virus, which can cause cervical carcinoma. Same for boys, it's different vaccine. Multiple sexual activities and partners cause prostatic cancer early. So what should we do? Teach them continence, teach them abstinence till they come to the age one life partner forever. That is not taught. They develop Hpv vaccine that had horrible consequences. So I should have mentioned this at the stage I was tackling vaccines. So vaccine experiments have been done again and again with terrible consequences which don't get reported in the main press. For instance, between 2010 and 2017, Bill Gates Foundation proposed and sponsored a new vaccine, new polio vaccine with a new polio vaccine strain in India. In that 7 years, 454,000 kids got paralyzed with actual polio. What was the reason? The vaccine strain of polio, which are not there in the world before. There were few cases isolated here and there. They said we have to have an intense, very intense vaccine program, and that was the end result. Similarly, they tried a vaccine for malaria. And in Kenya, it is said they tried a tetanus toxoid vaccine. You can read about this, which also has a formula for sterilizing. So the vaccine was recommended only for ladies, as if only ladies get tetanus. But you know, before pregnancy, before confinement, when you are going through childbirth, before you go through childbirth, tetanus toxoid is given. So they used that opportunity to introduce a sterile formula. And there's a big hue and cry right now in the press. Dust has to settle for us to know exactly what happened. In Tanzania, the president said, I sent some pepper juice and some other things to the lab checking coronavirus. They sent it positive, and that is fake. And I think there's another fracas going on in Kenya, I think, about another issue. Check on it. I have not yet fully checked on it. Then, fifthly, music, cartoons, entertainment, and digital games are the broad swath of the infiltrating army of the international, the invasive global trends. I call it IGT, invasive global trends. So they come from music, cartoons, entertainment, fashion designs, and digital games. And parents who prefer a family culture are helplessly invaded by all this. Then 6, child rights promoted by UN bodies, and kids can sue parents and that kind of thing. It has not come to Sri Lanka, but in the West it's a huge problem. Of course, to this must be added that dad, mom abdicate home and children to their own ends, so you forsake your own family with drastic consequences. Then abortion as a contraceptive, sterile vaccines, LGBTQ agenda, all invade your family. So if you break up the family, you break up the nation. So when globalists want to get at a nation, they destroy the family. That's it. Then you know there's a politicizing of drug patents, vaccines. At present, which country will produce the better vaccine? Now, Oxford is getting onto a proper vaccine. Jenner Institute of Vaccinology, Dr. Sarah Gilbert's, a reputed lady, but Oxford will take time. Then others are saying different strains are there, we have to make a vaccine there, we have to make a vaccine here. Ultimately they will say you have to take 7 kinds of coronavirus vaccines, and that has to go into a digital certificate in your right hand. I have to say that last book of the Bible mentions that there's going to be a marking system. We did not know how that marking system comes, so it is prudent to be wise what this is all about. We are hoping it will not come to Sri Lanka. Politicizing drug, 11th point, using carbon print and global warming issues. They wanted to invade nations, and according to the carbon print, they wanted to exercise duty, and you remember levy default tax or whatever it is. Now those things didn't get going in the invasion of sovereign nations. Those suggestions did not get going, but this virus and vaccine has really got going, isn't it? So Andrew Cuomo, Bill Gates, and Google had a tech conference in New York in the midst of all this trouble in New York, which did not give hydroxychloroquine, but Chris Cuomo took a hydroxychloroquine analog for his coronavirus infection, and he was quickly clinically healed. So you see there is some problem, isn't it? So in that tech conference they said no more school, human beings are the biohazard. Machines are not a biohazard. That's what they said. I'll repeat it. Human beings are the biohazard. Machines are not a biohazard. They said that. So that's where they want to move. No physical classroom. So we made family at home, siblings. We made family at school. We made family in university. Now what happens is Children are persuaded that their better future is in another country. Stop with O-level, get 1 million rupees and get PR somewhere. You leave your family and go. You have no concern for your brother, sister or parents, and you are not thinking of continuity or generations. You are just saying the fittest survives. There's a struggle for existence. I look after myself. That's a global culture, working against the family culture. Then GM modification of food and seeds have caused enormous problems. One, agrochemicals are needed for modified seeds. Modified seeds, genetically modified seeds, those genomes, when they are interfered with, they begin to merge with other genomes. I have done this. Prion diseases come, mad cow diseases came because the modified corn genome got inside the cow brain and began to do a false protein, malfolded protein, which acted like an infecting particle, infecting cows, and man eat cows, and man got it. It was called bovine spongiform encephalitis. Reason? The modified genome of the wheat produced a bad protein because when the wheat modification merged in the genome of the cow brain. So it's a bit of a complicated thing, but I think you can get it. So what's my point? GM modification of food and seeds will produce problems. One immediate problem is that modified seeds need agrochemicals unlimited, which causes, the Monsanto problems and other things. Yes. 14, there was a drive all over the world to change from grain to cash crops in 2008. Along with the engineered debt crash, we also had a grain shortage. And still it is on, the grain shortage. So the last book in the Bible, Revelation chapter 18, verse 8 says, there would come a time when there be a real grinding halt of all the world's economy. We never thought it's possible. And it says because of a plague and a pestilence. It has now happened. So these are some pointers that beyond science, we need some rule. We need some affiliation beyond science. When man plays God, it looks dangerous. Eugenics, population control. What's the problem with the world? Too much population for dwindling resources. That's the Orwellian. George Orwell explained it well. Prophet he was, secular prophet. He saw it coming. So the end game, rich also have tiers. So ultimately this tier eliminates this tier, that tier eliminates this tier. Then only the highest tier should survive. They only should have water. They only should have resources. That's where this is going. So changing from grain to cash crops, then using debt, getting sovereign nations into debt so that foreigners can own the properties and other resources of a given nation, so that nations' boundaries are wide open for invasion. If you protect the family, your nation is protected. If you look after your nation, nations are to behave like a family of brothers and sisters. But when nations are open to global predators, we lose everything. Yes. I think I have spoken enough. Just one more final point. There's a lot of talk about the globulin and that kind of thing, but using gamma globulins has its limited use. Useful, but it has its limitation. And lots of gamma globulin research goes unchecked, and that Dr. Monica, the immunologist of Germany, says many fake research results have been contested. So that's where science has been going. Coming back to COVID, we are thankful in Sri Lanka we have done very well. We hope with the release of lockdown, things would keep just like this. That's our hope, isn't it? Thank you for listening. We'll meet again when more facts come together.